Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Chris Kimball. Thanks for your company. Coming up, the Greek gifts to Canberra, along with some of the city's hidden histories. Moving on now, and themes of uncertainty and loss are often played out by those arriving in Australia from other countries. Joy McDonald is a Canberra artist, and recently she used puppetry and painting to share the story of her family's migration from Greece. The Greek community is an important, if understated, contributor to the Canberra story. Greek families came to Canberra bearing many gifts, the most significant being their prodigious work ethic. They started simple fish shops and milk bars in the 1920s and 30s, and now they're helping shape the city through multi-million-dollar developments.
All the milk bars were family concern, and the children were practically brought up in these coffee lounges, so that it has that history, that going, and the children appreciate it, no matter how young they were, how hard the parents worked.
But they were good years too. A lot of the old guys that had those are still around, and they still talk about that.
There must have been a real family determination and work ethic to make those early businesses a success.
Yes. They had to be resilient and they had to be able to survive. So opening your own business would have been fairly risky, but at the same time the determination of the family working together as a group made it successful.
Joy McDonald has used art and puppetry to share her own Greek family odyssey, which has a Canberra connection. Who have we got here, Joy?
This is my grandmother. She represents the women at the time who were left behind by their husbands who were fishermen, hence the name Fish Lady. She looks like my grandmother, who always wore black stockings, had thin legs, and was a bit plumpish. She's the main character of the play.
Good morning, Kalimera. How are you today? Nice to see you all. And her hen. Coco. Nice to see you, Kalimera. And every morning, the fish lady and the hen would watch the sunrise together.
Joy's recent play, The Very Sad Fish Lady, told the story of her Greek grandmother who pines for her family who've immigrated to Australia and are living in Canberra.
There's a lot of sadness, but there's also a lot of humour, and that is conveyed to the audience through the puppetry, through the story, the characters. They're all quite eccentric.
And after the fish lady swept the path, she would feed her hen, who was very hungry. Coco, have some bread for your breakfast.
The sadness of the fish lady is a universal story in terms of people who are isolated from their family, because often their families migrate and they're left behind. It's also fairly topical because of the boat people arriving who are seeking another place to belong. It's all about human issues of belonging, finding their place, their new place in the world, and calling somewhere home.
Your grandma eventually called Australia home a few years later.
Yes, she did. She came to Australia and this became her place, yep.
For many Greek families in the 1920s and 30s, finding their place meant working long hours in small business. Family names like Nataris, Cassidy and Evkapidis became prominent in early Canberra for their food and retail businesses. How important were those old milk bars in the social life?
They were, I mean, especially for the Greeks, and not just, but all the people around there. They would have been huge. It was somewhere to get together and have a chat, and they would discuss all kinds of things, business, politics, and it was, like I said, I mean, the clubs nowadays are here for that side of it. They weren't around back then, so I suppose it was a mini Hellenic club, if you like.
Nowadays, second-generation Greek-Australian developers like John Evkapidis are behind some of Canberra's most significant projects. And in some ways, is your family like the new Acton developments and things like that? They're creating modern versions of that in some way.
Absolutely. I mean, what my cousins are doing there is tremendous. You know, a lot of vision, a lot of art there. The buildings are fantastic. You know, trying to use, you know, or try to keep the buildings as sustainable as possible. So yeah, no, I reckon they're great.
A long way from fish and chips.
Absolutely, yeah.
Michael Kazan's first job was at one of those old cafes. He arrived in Canberra from Greece in 1970. Now he shares Greek history and language through the Hellenic Club.
A lot of people say, oh, what is going to happen to fourth, fifth generation of people of Greek background? Well, yes, they may not be able to speak the language fluently, but deep down in themselves, in their character, in the way they do things, is going to be influenced by the Greek background.
Is it getting more difficult to retain the links to the past as we move further away?
It is, yeah, absolutely. It is. It's hard, and there's certain things, you know, we've got to find ways to get the kids interested. So yeah, it's definitely hard. It is harder than what it used to be.
Not enough olives.
They say Virgil said, beware of Greeks bearing gifts.
Gifts, yeah.
What were the gifts for Canberra, you think, from the Greek community?
Good question. I think
certainly more than food, it's extended.
I think whatever groups migrate contribute something for the advancement of the whole.
Delicious.
What's it like working with Michael Kazan?
Working with Michael is a great experience because you learn a lot about different cultural aspects. Organizing great events, for example, gallery exhibitions, dancing. So it's very interesting, I will say, and you do many different things. The variety of jobs we have and the range is impressive.
So Michael Kazan in one word?
Impressive.
The Hellenic Club has been very important, and I'd like to thank everybody for their support, knowing that yes, I did have good ideas, but those ideas could not be realized unless they had the support of the Hellenic Club. I'm proud of what I've done for the Hellenic Club, and in all humility, I'm sure they will appreciate what I've done for the last 13 years. In a way, I started work just before the major extensions. I'm living now where the club is at its peak. And I'm very glad because in a way reflects my development as well. It's, of course, I remember my first day in Canberra when I arrived 43 years ago. Again, with one suitcase of clothes and hundreds of suitcases full of memories, full of aspirations and hopes that Australia will give me what I wished for. And it did. So now I feel that after 43 years in this lovely country, it's time to go back, to rediscover myself and do things I wanted to do for a long time. I committed myself to everything I did, and I commit myself to continue doing things for myself and for the others. People are very important to me, and I hope that in the development of Australia, not only Canberra, in that respect, I put my little rock in building this beautiful society and country we live in. Έφτασα στην Καμπέρα πριν 43 χρόνια με μια βαλίτσα ρούχα και πολλές βαλίτσες γεμάτες αναμνήσεις, αισιοδοξία, ελπίδες. Δεν μπορώ να πω ότι η Αυστραλία και η Καμπέρα δεν ήταν πάρα πολύ καλή για μένα και ο κόσμος της. Αλλά ήρθε ο καιρός που θέλω πια να γυρίσω πίσω στην πατρίδα μου, εκεί που γεννήθηκα και μεγάλωσα, και να συνεχίσω τη δουλειά που κάνω, που πάντοτε είναι να καλυτερέψω την κοινωνία στην οποία ζούμε. Η ελληνική λέσχη με βοήθησε πάρα πολύ. Ναι, είχα πολλές ιδέες, οι οποίες όμως δεν θα μπορούσα να τις πραγματοποιήσω αν δεν είχα τη βοήθεια των διαφόρων διοικητικών συμβουλίων. Στην ελληνική λέσχη άρχισα πριν 13 χρόνια, λίγο πριν την επέκταση η οποία έχει γίνει και έχει κάνει την ελληνική μας λέσχη το καμάρι όχι μονάχα της ελληνικής παροικίας της Καμπέρας, όλης της Αυστραλίας και θα τολμούσα να πω και όλου του κόσμου. Έδωσα τη ζωή μου, έδωσα ό,τι καλύτερο είχα και ο κόσμος μου το ανταπέδωσε. Τώρα ελπίζω τα λίγα χρόνια που μου έχουν μείνει να τα ζήσω στην πατρίδα μου, με τους δικούς μου και να συνεχίσω να κάνω αυτό που ξέρω να κάνω καλύτερα. Να βοηθώ τον κόσμο και τον εαυτό μου. I started teaching Greek at little children when I first came in 1970. And they were my children. And they were my teachers, helping me to learn English. And they were my mentors in their way, simplistic way. Then later, I continued with adults. And one of the most difficult things in leaving this country and going back to my homeland is that I leave all these lovely people who for years came and struggled with me to learn my language and my culture. A very big congratulations to those of Greek background who wanted to improve their Greek or learn Greek because they didn't have the opportunity when they were young. And also a very big thank you to all of those of non-Greek background who wanted to learn my language and my culture and share it with me and the rest of the people in the class. More than 1,200 people, students, passed my classroom door in the 13 years I'm teaching. That makes me very proud and makes me feel that a part of me belongs to that room called classroom on the top floor of the Hellenic Club.
You arrived with one suitcase or two suitcases?
One small suitcase.
One small suitcase?
Yes.
And you're leaving with one big one and one small one?
Small one, not that big.
It's big.
After 43 years in Australia. When I arrived, it was just a tin shed. That's all it was, 43 years ago. Now you don't recognize it. You know, it's really, and as I said before, for me, I associate my development to the development of Canberra because I grew with Canberra, I expanded with Canberra.